Hi everyone, welcome to my Core. My name is Mayana and today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up. So in January I read 23 books, and usually if I read like this many books I would be like crocheting, but I'm actually not working on a project right now, so I'm just gonna be talking to you guys. So I don't remember my stats, but I read over 8,000 pages, so that's good. I had like 4 or 5 DNFs, and I don't know what they are because on StoryGraph you can DNF books, but they don't show you what books you DNF'd, and like I don't have them marked as DNF'd on Goodreads, so that's very unfortunate, but whatever. So I started off this year reading a series. I read the Beartown trilogy. In December I read Beartown, so in January I read Us Against You and The Winners. When I first read Beartown, I actually originally ended up giving it 4 stars, but then when I read Us Against You and The Winners, I ended up giving it 5 stars because I realizing like how much I was in love with this small town and the fucked up people in this small town. So Beartown starts off with a child taking a gun into the woods and holding it to the head of another child, and so the rest of the book follows a bunch of the kids and a few adults that live in this town, Beartown. It takes place in like, I think it was Sweden or Switzerland, in a small town in one of those places, and it follows the kids and a few adults and what led to this child taking a gun and pointing it to another child's head. I will say, if you do end up checking this book, trigger warning for SA. This book was a lot deeper than I expected it to be. Like I was just very intrigued because I'm like, ooh, a child holding a gun to a child's head, like, ooh, what's that about? I ended up realizing it was a lot different than what I expected, but in a good way. I ended up loving it, obviously. And if you know me, you know I am not good at reading series. I have a video about that coming up at some point, and I'm not good at reading series. So the fact that I read this whole entire trilogy is insane. Like, I love this series with my entire heart. So then I started another series. I started reading Once Upon a Broken Heart. I ended up giving this book I ended up giving it originally 4 stars, but then I read the second book and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So this book is about this girl named Evangeline, and the love of her life is set to marry her sister. So she goes to Jax, which is like the gods of this universe, and she makes a deal with him, and so she obviously has to like follow up with that deal, and he tells her that she has to kiss like 3 different guys. So it's like about that storyline, and I thought it was like fine. The first book was like okay. I didn't really think Evangeline had a lot of personality. And then when I read the second book, I kind of liked the book. I was having fun. It was a fun little YA book. But then when I read the second one, I know everyone found that book really, really good. And like, I didn't find it boring or anything. Like, I didn't think it was good. But Evangeline got on my nerves. Like, she only hated Jax because she thought he wasn't good. Like, she just decided that he wasn't good because of like how everyone else talked about him. But then like any other person in the story who was obviously a villain or playing her, she immediately would trust just because they weren't Jax. Like, she would just be like, oh well, like this person seems good, like I'm gonna trust them. And like her naivete actually got so irritating to me that I couldn't take it anymore. And I'm like, Eventually actually had no personality besides being super nice to everyone and being naive, and I just couldn't, and like having pink hair, and I just like couldn't take it anymore. Like, I was just like, I cannot do this. Like, I'm sorry, like I'm gonna need a little bit more from her. Like, Jax was great and their romance was giving, but like it was not enough because Evangeline was such a bland and boring character. So then I read The Stolen Heir. I've been getting makeup on my copies, so I'm trying to make sure I don't have any like makeup on my hand. I actually have 2 copies of this. I accidentally ordered 2 copies of this book. So I actually have a reading vlog about this if you want to know my more like in-depth thoughts about this book. But I ended up giving this book, I originally gave it 4 stars, but I actually went back and changed my rating to 3 stars. So this book is about, I already have makeup everywhere. Please make it stop. Make it stop. This book is about, oh, her name is Ren. This book is about Ren. This is Oak's love story. Oak is the younger brother to Jude, Vivian, and Taryn in the Book of the Air series. So this book is about Ren and Oak, who Dog, I do not remember. The first half of this book was so fucking boring. It follows Ren and Oak. Ren is an orphan. She is blue, and she ran away from like her fairy world to live in the woods. And Oak, you know, he's Oak, and they end up teaming together for something. I really don't remember. I'm sorry. You can go watch my vlog if you want like better description, but they end up working together. And I loved Oak in this book. Like, Oak is my son. Like, I just like loved and adored him. I think his character was amazing. It was written very consistently, like very good. I actually really liked Ren as well. Ren reminded me of Jude without being too much of Jude, which I think, no spoilers, but I feel like Jude is gonna have to show up in the second book for reasons. Like, I feel like there's no way she won't show up in the second book, and I think it'll be very interesting to see those two characters like interact with each other. I mean, I guess Holly Black could write it to where Jude isn't in the book, but like I just don't see that happening with the way that this ended. So I then read While Justice Sleeps, and I gave this 4 stars. This is a political thriller, and I actually found this really interesting. This is about this girl who, she's like a lawyer. Like, it gave How to Get Away with Murder, I'm not gonna lie. And the person that she's working for just died. Like, he wasn't really killed, but he died. And he basically says that like he basically puts her up to like figure out this thing that he was already figuring out, but she can't like tell people about it. And so like the cops are like, oh, like, were you his mistress? Like, she like gets like his like money or something like that. So he ends up teaming up with his son, and they end up like working together to figure out like this mystery. It's getting a sequel, so that's why I checked it out. But I've been wanting to read this book for months because of Jess from Jess Owens. I've been wanting to read this book for months, and like when I worked at Target, I will always see it in the store, and I like am obsessed with this cover. I'm actually sad that I don't have it yet. I'm obsessed with this cover, and so it was just really good. It's by a Black author. It's just like a good political thriller. Like, I did not think I was going to be into political thrillers, but I think if I'm going to read any kind of thrillers, it's actually probably going to be political thriller, because like this book did not disappoint, which is saying a lot because, you know, I'd be disappointed by thrillers. The next book is On Rotation. I think I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I read this book because of Monty. This book is about this girl. It's like, it gives like Grey's Anatomy tease. Like, I'm on my Grey's Anatomy break, but I've been watching Grey's Anatomy. I started in December. I'm on season 5. Well, I'm actually almost done. I'm actually almost on season 6. I have like 2 more episodes left. And so I'm obsessed with Grey's Anatomy. Like, I'm having the time of my life. I'm actually trying to savor it because I know like once it gets to season 10, it's not as good in like fans' opinions. Yeah, so On Rotation is about this girl. She is... It really would help if I knew the terms for any of these books. Like, with While Justice Sleeps, like, I feel like if I knew the terms, I could explain it better. Like the legal terms, and like, I forget, I don't know how to explain it. But like, I don't know these terms. Like, On Rotation, she just took her test, and she is... I want to say Nigerian so bad, but I would hate to be wrong about that. So just know she's African, and she is living in Chicago, and she comes across this guy, and she's up like kind of, I don't want to say falling in love with him, but they end up kind of like sparking this romance. And then she goes to work, and she realizes that she's a resident. By the way, I know that term. She's a resident. And so she ends up running into him and finding out that he actually has a girlfriend, and it's like their romance. I just thought this book was okay. Like, I thought it was fine. I wasn't really interested in the romance. And there was this really weird comment about Black Americans. It wasn't like too weird. Like, it wasn't saying much, but like, I know that's how like Africans feel about Black Americans, but it's just like, did you have to put that in the book? Because it was like, her sister had an American boyfriend, and the author says, the character says something like, oh, and you know, my dad didn't like that. And I just like, I know that's a thing that happens, but like, I hate African dysphoria. Like, I hate it so much. And like, I feel like that comment was like very little, and like, I didn't see anybody else make like I didn't see anybody else's reviews say anything about it. And like, I know it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's like, I know what was meant by that, and like, I just feel like it didn't need to be put in the book. Like, I know that's something that happens, but I just feel like it didn't need to be put in the book. I read Vida Nostra, which I gave 3 stars. This one is about this school. It's like a dark academia book. It's about this like magical fantasy school. It's about this And so when you're in this school, you have to like do good and be like a good person, or else your family at home will get punished for it. And like the first half of this book was like really, really good. Like it was about this girl who's on vacation with her mom, and this guy that kept following them. She's like, "Mom, like, is this guy following us?" And the mom is like, "What guy?" She's like, "What the fuck?" And this guy, like, she approaches the guy, and this guy is like, "You need to collect 10 coins. Like, you need to wake up every morning and swim and collect 10 coins." One of the things he told her that she had to do was she had to go for it. She had to drink a bunch of water, wake up at 5 a.m., go for a jog, and then pee in the bushes. In the bushes. And I was like, oh, this is good. And like once she gets to the school, it's like she's like learning about the school. It gets really good. But then towards the end, I just got like really, really bored. Like it doesn't have a plot. Nothing was going on. It just was like really boring. I'm not gonna lie. So this is like one of my anticipated, this is one of my anticipated books. One of those like booktube hype books that I was like so excited for, especially because of Dark Academia. And like I was just so disappointed and let down by this. My heart hurts. I'm actually still mourning. Then I read the 6 Steps of the Saint. So this book blew up. This book blew up everywhere on like Twitter. This book actually blew up twice, if that makes sense. It could have blown up anywhere else, but like I want to say the first of the month, everybody was talking about this book, and then like it kind of died down, and then like out of nowhere everybody else was talking about this book. And so this book is about, okay, so the Saint of War spares the life of a servant girl so she can fulfill her destiny as the kingdom's greatest warrior. In like this book, is mindful of the debt she owes. The girl finds her worth as a weapon in the hand of a prince. Her victories make him king, then an emperor. The bars sing her name and her enemies fear it, but the war never ends and the cost keeps rising. How many times will she repeat her own story? And like everybody else ate this book the fuck up. Like everybody else gave it like 5 stars, 4 stars. I'm the only bitch that gave it 3. Like I thought the writing was amazing, but like I'm just not seeing what everybody else liked about it. I'm actually probably gonna reread it. I listened to the audiobook, but I'm actually gonna reread the physical book, I mean the ebook, because I did not see what everybody else saw. Like everybody else, like the writing is beautiful, like this is a good book, but I'm just like, okay, what about this made y'all love it? It's very short. It's 30 pages. I actually read you the description because I feel like the way that I described it was never gonna be as like good as what it is. And it's on Kindle Unlimited. It's 30 pages. If you have Kindle Unlimited and the audiobook, you can get the Kindle version and listen to the audio book. It'll take you 30 minutes. Like I do highly recommend it. Like the writing was like so fucking beautiful, but I'm just not seeing what everybody else saw. So I'm gonna reread it because like I said, the writing was beautiful, but I just want to know like what the fuck, what did I miss? Then I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I talked about this one in my January new release vlog. I just thought this book was okay. I think I ended up giving it 2 stars. I thought this book was terrible. I ended up giving it 2 stars, and that was To Be Nice. It's a cozy fantasy. I'm learning that like cozy fantasies are not my thing. If you don't have a plot line, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm sorry. I tried to read Legend of Lattes. I didn't like it. I tried The Secret Society of Irregular Riches. Didn't like it. Like I do not like things that don't have a plot line, especially if it's gonna be like long. If it's gonna be more than 100 pages and it doesn't have a plot line, why? I just don't get it. I don't care. And then this book is like, oh, this is like Howl's Moving Castle. It's not. If you want something that's like Howl's Moving Castle, you want to read Sorcery of Thorns. That is like Howl's Moving Castle. But yeah, this is like Howl's Moving Castle. It's about this girl. She is writing an encyclopedia for fairies, so she's doing a bunch of research, and she has like this academic rival which didn't eat as much as you would think it did. Like this book just did not eat. It didn't have a point. It just was talking and talking and talking for pages. The love interest was supposed to be like Howl, but I thought he was an asshole. To me, Howl is like a very chill guy. Like he's just very chill. He's very like smooth and flirtatious, but he's chill. But for some reason, when people write books and they're like, this is like Howl from Howl Moving Castle, they make him an asshole. I don't know what the fuck y'all were watching, but Howl is like a very chill, calm dude. But whatever. So now we're here for the golden girl of the story. I read Hellbent. I read Hellbent 3 times. So I listened to the audiobook. I actually have a vlog on this, so if you want to know more of my thoughts. I cried. So I have a vlog. I read this book audiobook, and then I read an ebook so I can annotate it, and then once I got the annotations, I got the physical book. Well, my friend bought me the physical book, and then I moved my annotations over to the physical copy. So these, I don't know if you can see. Y'all, my friend Hannah ate me up because I still use these colorful tabs, and everybody else like does like the monochromatic thing. Listen, I need pink tabs so I can know that what scenes I love. Like, I need a pink tab in all of my books. Like, I'm sorry, I need a blue tab for like the male love interest that I'm in love with, and I need a purple tab for the main character if I'm obsessed with her. So as we can see, the last 100 pages are my favorite thing in the entire fucking world. I actually held off from not rereading this book a fourth time, which I will be once I reread Ninth House. My camera must not have wanted me to be great, because the moment I started talking about my favorite book ever, it wants to die. Like, okay, girly pop. But yes, Hellbent. I read it 3 times in 1 month. I'm gonna read it a fourth, I'm not gonna lie. Because, like, low-key, I haven't had a 5-star book since I've read this, and this came out on the 10th. I did read it 3 times in 1 week, but whatever. So this book is the sequel to Ninth House. Ninth House is about Alex Stern, who can see grays, her ghost, and she is at Yale, I believe, and she works with this super secret society kind of watch over what's going on, and you're following a mystery. And so this book follows up the, obviously this is a sequel to that book, and this is following like what happens at the end of that book, which is like such a gasping moment. If you want to read Ninth House, you might want to look up the triggers, because like there's like a billion triggers, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, but whatever, it is served. This book was good. In the beginning, I can say it was a little boring, but like this book happened exactly what I thought was gonna happen. Like, this book, like a lot of the readers have like not really enjoyed this book, or they've given it like 3 stars. A lot of people who love Ninth House, but I'm just curious as to like what they thought was supposed to happen. And I know a lot of my friends didn't enjoy this, so I don't mean this in a mean way, but it's just like, did we read the same book? Or second books, I kind of don't expect too much, because that usually is what happening. But the ending of this book was fucking amazing. Like, Alex's character was so fleshed out. She was so hilarious. Like, I think I'm gonna reread the first book, so I actually don't remember, but like I don't remember Alex being this fucking funny in the first book. And like Alex Stern, like, she was one of my favorite characters in Ninth House, but I want to say in Hellbent, she's absolutely one of my favorite female characters. And Darlington was already my favorite character, but like I just loved him down. And like Leigh Bardugo knows what she's doing with like their romance and like their lines, the things that he says, and like Darlington being my demon husband. Like, he served. Like, there's a scene, half of this book he's naked, like half of this whole book he's naked, and then towards the end, just like the lines were just fucking amazing. Like, there was this line where he was like, I want to sit Alex on the table and eat her like she was breakfast. There's this line, my favorite line: wanted to F word, he wanted to fight, he wanted to sleep for 1,000 years. Like, I think that's also why I loved it. Like, I think that these characters, I think also a reason why I love this more than other people is because I really was attached to these characters. And I think a lot of the times people interpret characters how they want to interpret characters, and not exactly how they're written. And so like the same thing happened with like The Cruel Prince when that came out, or the Folk of the Air series when that came out. Like, everyone thought that Cardan was just like some badass boy. Like, yeah, he was a bully, but to me Cardan was very much a soft boy. So when The Queen of Nothing came out, a lot of people were disappointed in his character, and I'm like, Cardan was never meant to be written as like some evil, vile person, like fairy. Like, of course it was a fairy, so he was evil, but like out of all the other fairies, he was very soft. And I think that also happened with Ninth House, is that people kind of put their certain expectations on like who Alex was and who Darlington was, and then when in this sequel they weren't that, everyone was very confused. But to me, it actually like lived up, and I just loved Alex. I thought she was super funny. I loved Darlington. I loved them together. I can't wait for the sequel. I love that, like, my favorite thing in fantasy books is when there's like little to no romance, so that leaves me a lot of room to be delusional and just come up with like my own. And so like this book did that, but like times 10. Like, it gave me some lines to run with, and it's just like, oh, this book just serves so bad. Like, Darlington, like Alex and Darlington, like, oh my god, Oh my god, I'm about to reread this for the fourth time. And then it also has found family vibes, which, like, duh, Lee Bardugo. I love the found family vibes in this book. It actually serves so good. And yeah, it was a 5-star read to me. So sorry to y'all who it wasn't a 5-star read to, but it was for me. So I read Finley Donovan Knocks Him Dead. I'm actually gonna be in Lala's book club, Literally Dead book club, for book 3. I already had this book, but she asked me to be like on the book club like the same week I got this book on my Libby, so I was like, yes, like, okay. So I hurry up and read it because I know like the book is out now, but I'm waiting for it to be on my Libby again so I can just start reading it. But I gave this one 2 stars, I think. This one was just really not that great to me. I'm sure you all know what Finley Donovan is Killing is about, so I'm not gonna explain it to y'all. But yeah, this book just follows like, so in the last book she was told to do something that was like crazy, and like I just thought that this book was like, I just thought it was really boring. Vero's character just, now that's a character I think was just like not written well as she was in the first book. The whole like romance thing was just not cutting it. It just has second book syndrome, but I don't know how many books are supposed to be in this series. Like, so far it's supposed to be 3, but I just know that the author wants like a lot of books in this series, so it's just like, I don't know, it just didn't serve. It just wasn't good. Like, it wasn't fun. It was kind of a dread. I am excited for the 3rd book though, because that one just seems a lot more interesting. That's where they go into like the police academy because they're trying to solve like this mystery, and I'm like, okay, that's fun. This one was just not, and that's okay. The next books I read the Winter Night series, so that's the Bear in the Nightingale, The Girl in the Tower, oh, and the Winter of the Witch. But I read the first 2 like back to back, and then the 3rd one I read like a week later. So at first the book was like the Bear in the Nightingale was like a 4-star read. This one, it doesn't really have a plot. It's about this girl, and damn, I can't even tell you what this is about actually, because whoa, it's about this girl and like lives in this small town. It's like, it was very good to read in the winter, especially being from Michigan, somewhere where it snows a lot, it's cold a lot, like it gets below 0 degrees pretty much every winter. So like it was really fun to read during like that. But yeah, I can't really explain what this is about. Like, it follows a lot of other characters more than just the girl, honestly. It's about like, there's a dad, he gets this necklace and he's told to give it to his daughter, and the maid doesn't give it to her, and then once she turns a certain age she gives it to her. And there's like this myth of this bear, and she is also discovering that she's a witch, and that's like an abomination towards her family. And there's like this priest and her stepmom who's a total bitch. And like, I thought this book was so good. Like, even though this book actually rarely followed the main character, it followed a bunch of other characters. Though I didn't think they were interesting, I thought they got themselves into interesting circumstances. She has a lot of brothers. She has an older sister who's sent off after she's married, and she like mourns her sister. She has like a younger stepsister. Her stepmom like isn't like an evil stepmom, but she also is like a bitch. Like, there was like a scene where she like slapped her. Like, she was like always like disciplining her, and I'm like, that's not your child, girly pop. And then you have The Girl in the Tower, which follows like her going to see her sister. And like, the book doesn't really have a romance in it. It has a romance in the 2nd book, but like not really. I thought the romance was like not that intriguing. And then the 2nd book I just found really boring. Everyone else thought the 2nd book was like amazing, but I just found it like really boring. And then the 3rd book I actually DNF'd, but I counted it as read because I sat through this whole series. So I ended up changing the rating to like just 3 stars. I just think it was an okay series. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't my time to read it. I just thought like nothing was really going on. It didn't really focus on the main character a lot. Like, it focused on a bunch of other people. The 3rd book started off really interesting, but I put it down and I just literally never want to pick it back up again. So I just said, I'm just gonna DNF it, because like every time I thought about reading it, I just didn't want to read it, and it was gonna put me into a reading slump. So I just didn't pick it back up again. I gave Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute 3 stars. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute was like very, very good. I just felt like they got together a little bit too soon for my liking. Like, they got together at like the 60% mark, and even though they weren't like officially dating, they had already been like having like this, you know, really interesting relationship. And I just thought it would have benefited it if it was a little bit more slow burn. So for that, I was just like, okay, like, it was really, really good though. Like, it would have been a 4-star read. And then also there was like this miscommunication trope that I just could not fuck with. Like, he wanted to tell her that she loved him, and she went to tell him that he loved her, whatever, however you say, I don't know, I probably said that wrong, but whatever. They both wanted to say they were in love with the other person, but like they both were scared the other person didn't feel the same, even though they very clearly like were both interested in each other, because they were like having like this little secret romance thing going on or whatever. And she thought that he was gonna end the relationship, so instead of letting him talk, she ended the relationship. And I was just like, okay, like that just pissed me off. And then one of them somehow ended up in the hospital, and then they ended up confessing their feelings for each other. And I was like, okay, I just wasn't fucking with it. So then I read How to Sell a Haunted House, which I gave 3 stars. I thought it was just fine. Like, it's about this brother and sister. The sister is like an older sister, the brother's like a youngest brother. He was like allowed to get away with a lot of shit when he was growing up. Like, his parents just let him get away with so much, and he just ended up becoming like insufferable. And then her parents end up passing away, and they leave him the house and her the mom's art, and so they have to like go through the house because he's gonna sell it. And then like a bunch of like scary shit starts happening. Halfway through the book was fine. Like, I thought it was okay. I only give it 3 stars because it's a Grady Hinges book. I'm not gonna lie, because I think it low-key deserved it too, because I'm not really a paranormal girl. And there is this Poppin plot line just completely fucking lost me. The whole Poppin thing, I was just like, you cannot be for real right now. Like, I just could not take it seriously. And so for that, I just like had to give it 3. Like, I'm sorry, it just felt like a Goosebumps episode and not even like a good one. Like, it just wasn't that. And then I read Mystery of Thor and Manor, which I gave 5 stars. This one is, I talked about this one in my January new releases as well. This one is it's like a sequel novella to Sorcery of Thorns, so it follows the 2 main characters, and this is more just like about them being domestic. So they are trapped in this manor, and so they have to like figure out like what the fuck is going on and why they're trapped and like how they can get out. And it's just about Elizabeth and Nathaniel like being more domestic and being a couple. And I actually really enjoyed this. Like, I was like, this is a YA book, so I was scared going into this that I was not gonna like it, because y'all know how I feel about YA books. But like, this one was like amazing. Like, it has some like good one-liners. Like, there was this one line where Nathaniel was like, I'll get on my knees for you, and I was like, you know, it just served. Like, I love them together. I love Silas. Like, I love them as a trio. Like, it was just amazing. And it was just, I think I ended up loving it even more because I was not expecting to love it. Like, I was just like, oh, like, you know, like, yeah. It was so good. It was so good. And then I read Breakup from Hell, which I gave 3 stars. And I gave it 3 stars because this is a YA book, and because even though I didn't really enjoy it, I think that a lot of readers will, especially because this is by an author of color. So I was like, I am not gonna rate their books low. So this one is about this girl who ends up meeting the son of Satan, but she doesn't know that's who he is, and a bunch of like shit starts going on. So then like they start getting together, and then she has to like break up with him and like get rid of him and blah blah blah. Personally, like, this book actually was false advertising, because as soon as she met him, she kind of had suspicions about him, and then it was like very insta love. Like, I just did not think they were cute. Like, it wasn't believable that they would like be together. And it feels like the author only, like, it just seemed like, okay, like the author was just like, I'm gonna make this a plot line, like they're gonna date and then they're gonna fall in love, and then she's gonna find out he's the son of a devil. Where it's just like, it was written as if that was like how the author was thinking, and like it just wasn't believable that she would fall in love with him, because she already has suspicions about him. And so I just thought it was like fine. And then I read Starless Crown. I gave this one 4 stars. I read this because of Monty, and I had so much fun with this book. This actually is a really well written like fantasy book. Like, I only gave it 4 stars because I think it took me 4 days to finish it, and I'm not used to taking that long to read a book. This was like 22 hours, so it was like, I don't know, 11 hours on like 2 times speed. And so I just felt like it took me really long, but like it was really good. It's like an adventure fantasy, which you know I really don't like, so with that being said, that's good. It's like an adventure fantasy. It's about this girl who was born blind, and she lives like in this fantasy world, and she was being bullied. And there's like this, I don't know how to explain it, but there is this place where she's not supposed to go into, but she was being bullied and like almost sexually assaulted, so she had no choice but to go into there. And then like the bully followed her in there, and he ends up dying, and like she ends up being able to get her sight back, I think. which is like she's never been able to see before. And so then the king finds out about this, and he has her like come to like the palace or whatever, and she ends up like prophesying like the apocalypse, and the king just does not fuck with that. And then you also have the king's second born son. The first one, his first son is like his pride and joy, and like he's set to be the king, whereas his second son, he's like a drunk because he knows he's like a nobody to the people. And it's him and then like another character, and they all end up getting together, and like it's like a, you know, adventure fantasy, and it was like really good. Like it was like, it's just like really well written. The sequel should actually be out already or be coming out in February. It was just great. Like the writing was amazing. The author doesn't even write fantasy. I think he writes like thrillers. And I'm like, sir, he said he spent like 10 years writing this book, and you can very much tell. Like it was so, the writing was beautiful. Like, whoa. And the last book I read in January, I read Icebreaker. I gave this one 3 stars. I was not expecting to like this book, but Pri from Capri's Bookland talked about this in a haul that she did. And she said how much she liked it, and there was like this Uber scene. Everybody just kept talking about the Uber scene. Like I wanted to, like, obviously I bought this because I wanted to read it, but I was so scared that I was like gonna hate it because there was just so many mixed reviews. Like it was like in crazy, like you either like this book or you just fucking don't. And so I was just like I was like, when I got it, I was like, you know, I'm not gonna read it. But then I saw Capri's review, and I was like, you know what, let's get into it. So I decided to read it, and at first, the first 50 pages, I was just like, I'm not gonna like this. It's about this ice skater and this hockey player, and something happens to like his hockey stadium or whatever, so he has to like use like the ice skating thing, so she doesn't like him. It gives like Black Cat and Golden Retriever energy, and she's already hooking up with like this guy when the book starts, which I really did appreciate, because I made this tweet and it was like saying how like I hate that authors write books where the main character is a virgin. Like I'm so tired, like give me something else. And so I really like this. Was like really refreshing. Yeah, so the first 50 pages I was like, okay, this is fine. But then they meet, and he goes down on her at this party, and I was like, ooh, this is kind of good. And then there was another sex scene, and then they hooked up in the Uber, which I thought was hot. Then there was another sex scene, and I was like, okay, like I am so not used to it being like so many smut scenes in the beginning of a book. Like usually it'll be like 2 or 3 smut scenes at the end, and that's good for me because I'm not really, if I want to read pure erotica, I would read pure erotica. Like this book is 400 pages and it's just filled with smut, which like sounds like someone's dream, but if that's not what I'm looking for at the moment, it just is not. I'm just gonna skim through it. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I have moments where I really want to read that type of stuff, and I have moments where I just want to read the romance, and for me I just want to read romance. And she already had an F buddy in the beginning of the book, so then they end up in a fuck buddy relationship, or like a friends with benefits relationship, and I just didn't care to read about that. Like it wasn't like a trope that I was really interested in, and I didn't like this book. Like it was something new to me. Like I've never read something where they weren't like had banter in the beginning, or enemies to lovers. Like even though they kind of like were, she didn't really like particularly like love the guy, like or whatever, but I just wasn't interested in reading a 400-page friends with benefits book. Like if this had been like 200 pages, I probably would have loved it, but at a certain point I was just like, come on y'all, like come on y'all. And I really hope I don't sound like a prude or a loser, but sometimes I just want to read about the romance. I don't want to, like there was so many smut scenes, and not even trying to sound like a prude, but it was just like at a certain point I was just like, okay, like I'm just like I'm not in the mood for this right now. Like I was just reading this just because, I don't know, but it was really good, and I am excited to see like the side characters were really good. It was funny, but it was just too long for my liking. Like it felt like the author was trying to channel her like inner Marina Zapata, but like Marina Zapata works because it's slow burn, whereas this one, it wasn't like I don't know, like it wasn't fun. Like it was fun, but it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain. Like it was fun, but it wasn't like something that like I was like, I don't know, because it had me kicking my feet and giggling in the beginning. But then once we got to a certain point, I just got bored so easily, because I'm like, damn, we still got 200 pages left. They still fucking, they still haven't admitted their feelings for each other. There is nothing really going on. There's no plot. Like mind you, I'm telling you about the slut scenes and not the plot for a reason, because there wasn't one. He ends up like having like help her in a competition because the guy that she's working with is a villain, but nobody ever talks about that point when they talk about the book, because it's barely a plot line. Like it's barely even woven into the book. So I gave this 3 stars because I did like it. it reminded me of like my Wattpad days. I'm not gonna lie, like it seemed like something I would read in my Wattpad days. It was just too long for my liking. But yes, that is it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Tell me what your favorite book of the month. If you haven't read Ninth House and Hellbent, get to it. Get to it. I want to see it in people's wrap-ups. I want to see it in people's best books of the year. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.